In this episode, I interview Matt O'Connor from Honor Health Supplements. He talks about his company, which is actually in Australia, not yet available to our American audience. But after watching him on TikTok, his level of expertise on a variety of supplements is off the charts. In this episode, Matt talks about his health mission, why supplements matter, why timing matters, and why certain vitamins and minerals can actually compete for absorption. So this is an all-in-one education that we all should have gotten in high school. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So before I get on with that, I just wanted to tell my audience that I have been slowing down with my podcasting, and there's a reason for that. I've been building a platform on School, which I will be releasing to the public as a free course for the first 100 people. And don't worry, I will go to my current clients, my past clients, all my podcast listeners first before ever putting it out there on social media. So I want the first 100 people in for free. I'm starting with 15 different videos of getting you from zero to hero as fast and effective as possible, just like I would if I was actually training you. So this provides a more scalability for me to reach more people and bring everyone into a community that's much like a Facebook group, but on steroids. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'll be putting that link out. But if you want to catch it early, go over to my Facebook group right now, Over 40 Fitness Hacks, because I'll put that on there first before I get around to my next podcast episode that will have all those links in it. So I'm real excited about it. I'm going to be putting everything I got into this, and it'll be launching the first week of February. So thanks for hearing that, and let's get back. Matt, thanks for coming on my show. My Over 40 audience knows I talk a lot about vitamins, minerals, your macros, your micros, and really begin into the quality of supplements as the start of last year. I keep hearing stories of all the things going on with the corporations, at least here in the US, you're in Australia. There's so many workarounds that some of these companies can do and still put on the product that it has this much of something, but it may not be the highest quality. So that's why I love now getting people on the show, talking about how they got into this, their passion, and then just give us some tips and tricks. So my audience always knows that I get a new guest. We want to get your background a little first and then give us some of your knowledge.
Yeah, cool. I'm happy to be on, and a pleasure to be asked.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll give you the short version. So I'm a guy who's always been obsessed with health in some way or another, but not so much the biohack world as such, even though I've dabbled in there, but more focused and enjoy like what are the core principles, the stuff that works. With that, going back, say 15 years, left school, wanted to go be a physio, started that path in the Australian university curriculum, but worked out well. I actually wanted to lean more into the business side of the physio and health component, merge those two together. So that kind of sent me on the better part of a decade going down in different businesses, but always having an interest for that health space. And the impetus for starting Honor Health was I'd always had a keen focus on what I was putting into my body. And then looking into the Australian marketplace in terms of supplements, I remember opening up my cupboard door and going, I'm taking all these different products, I'm taking all these different brands, but I have no affinity to any brand. So with just my background in business and entrepreneurship, I started just looking, okay, well, is there something I could probably do within this space more to scratch my own itch than anything? And then the more I started to learn within the Australian marketplace for supplements, and it might be similar to the US, but over here, we're heavily regulated by the TGA, which is the Australian Therapeutic Goods Registration, and they oversee everything. But what I was surprised to learn the more I kept going into this space was the vast differences in the quality that comes from different supplements. Like as an example, there are different types of magnesium, and how much magnesium you absorb is highly different between those. And the more you absorb, the more benefit you get. So when I started to learn about this and I started to look at the magnesium forms that I was taking, I'm seeing magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, the lower quality forms, but not understanding that there were multiple different types. So that was the first area to start exploring. Well, I might actually start looking at doing something in this space. And the second part, which different to the US, but in Australia, the brands are only required to disclose the active ingredient in a supplement. So if you're taking a magnesium supplement, the active ingredient is magnesium. But when you make a supplement, you have to use, we'll call them the additives. Their more formal name is excipients, but they're additives that go into the formulation to support the manufacturing process. Now, additives aren't necessarily a bad thing, but like anything, there can be good quality additives that are like natural flowing agents from like rice, amino acids, MCT powder. or you can have the more man-made synthetic forms. But the kind of real eye-opening moment for me was in Australia, those additives aren't required to be disclosed to customers, which I believe is different to the US. You'll have under your supplement label other ingredients. So all those other ingredients, they're the flowing agents that we're talking about. But over here, it was like, wow, I'm taking all these supplements, but I don't actually know what's fully going inside. And I remember taking one of the vitamin D I was taking from a really popular brand over here. I won't mention their name, but on the label, it said one ingredient, vitamin D, cholecalciferol. But then I searched on the TGA's website, because you can search all the ingredients, and there were 16 other additives in that supplement, and stuff that I would just prefer not to take, like soy oils, the encapsulation. Let's just say there were some funky ingredients in there, but it was more to the point of like, I'm a guy who wants to know what I'm putting in my body to as far an extent as I can. And this isn't being disclosed, and these are health products. So those 2 points, a lack of good quality ingredients and lack of transparency was, well, if I want to take supplements, I actually need to start something for myself, because I just lack trust over the whole industry. And the stereotypes of supplements might just be expensive pee or you're wasting your money. Well, if you're not taking the right ones, it can turn out to be true.
Yeah.
So that was the start of Honor Health. Yeah, we kicked off back in May 22 and then launched to the public in January 2023 after going through manufacturing process, regulatory processes. And from there, it's just really been trying to bring to the awareness of the public of the importance, if you're supplementing, the quality of the ingredients that you're purchasing, but even at a more higher level, just the importance of vitamins and minerals in general across every aspect of life, but particularly as we age.
Yeah. I've taken vitamins, minerals, supplement shakes growing up and being in the industry, not really caring where it came from, mostly personal training, just am I getting enough protein? But as I've been aged now, it's micros. And okay, I know multivitamin, at least here in the US, they talk about like all the bonding agents on them that you're probably not even digesting it. So we started figuring out, okay, if you see what you can get with real food and then supplement what you need after that. We like to start with our RDAs over here, but all the biohackers have different levels that always check with your doctor, but having some good results on taking things like more vitamin C. For me, I started going down that path and experimenting, and higher vitamin C wiped out all my environmental allergies. I don't know about the inflammation it was causing in my body, but at least the histamine response was knocked out. Magnesium, and I don't know which kind is because I found a supplement company that just put them all in there. And my blood pressure, first time in my whole life that it went down to like an absolute athlete of 120/75, and then just started going down that path. Okay, I need to start fixing some of these things with the power of what these can do, because the other part I know is you can try to get this from food, but look at our farming practices, at least here in the US, are garbage. So find a problem and then try to fix it with this route. This year and a little bit of last year, really talking to people such as yourself who have been in the industry and all the horrible things, even in the supplement industry. You mentioned some in Australia, but we got a whole chock full of problems here in the US. And now you can't even trust some of these companies. So now my thing is I want to meet somebody, meet the founder here and talk about it, how well put together their supplement is, and substitute anything I'm taking for the better version. So that's where I am in this whole industry.
Yeah, I'm completely aligned in every way then. Like whole foods should always be the first choice. Really, it's whole food lifestyle practices where you can, and then if needed, supplement where necessary. But yeah, in the world that we're now living in, one, it's difficult to get enough of the key nutrients that our body needs through food alone, even in eating like the best whole food diet. But I know for myself, like I'm a bit of a regimist where I eat good quality, clean, nutrient dense foods, but quite often I'll eat similar food every day as well because it just works for me. However, with that, then you're kind of starting to lack the micronutrient content. So it's not until you really start, so for me, it wasn't until I started to look under the covers and go, well, what am I putting into my body? And these foods that I'm eating, how nutrient dense are they? And then if we go back to the farming practices, are these foods actually maintaining the nutrient density they used to have? So it's incredibly important.
Yeah. So I've noticed for myself, I started going originally just writing down a chart, doing it the hard way, everything I was eating, how much vitamins and minerals were everything, and then seeing where I was lacking. Now there's apps that can do that in 2 seconds for you. One of them I've been using is called Chronometer. It just nerds out on all the info in like 2 seconds. Just like you said, if I eat the same thing too many times, like just beef, then I'm off on all these other things. and I'm overtaking some of my supplements I'm currently on. I'm like, God, this is impossible. So I'm just get better and better at it. But like I said, I've had so many results from starting to take health into my own hands, not just building muscles, which has been my trade, but now
Yeah.
everything else that's with health and wellness and longevity. And I think it's great.
Yeah. And the key learning I've had, and if there was one takeaway to maybe leave with your audience, maybe just getting in at the start, was starting to learn that everything that we want to happen in our body needs vitamins and minerals. So I'm like yourself, went down the personal training background years ago, had my own gym, always focused macros, macros, macros. But even say to go about building muscle mass, well, you need the minerals to activate the processes in the body to then allow the muscle to be created. So it's this eye-opening of like, the macros are important, absolutely. But anything we want to happen needs vitamins and minerals. So it's looking at if I want to sleep better, if I want my testosterone levels to be better, if I want a strong immune system, these minerals are going to go in the body and start turning on these different processes. So for me, that was just a part of nutrition, which I never really come across much until I started to actually go and learn it for myself. It just doesn't seem to be as much in the communication around nutrition as more of the macros.
Yeah, same thing over here, unless you went full on dietitian or whatever the higher levels are. Like in kinesiology, personal training certifications, they talk about none of this stuff. So
No.
yeah, it's just getting into low level biohacking and starting to care about this stuff and testing things out that I started discovering this. But going back to like the chronometer and writing down those charts, at least for me, seeing how low in potassium I was, high in sodium, which is a typical American diet. I knew that, but low in zinc, low in copper, low in magnesium. I have all these milk allergies and food allergies where I don't get a lot of calcium. And now fixing some of those things, like just how much better your life is and how much healthier you feel and more motivation to become even more healthy too. So
Completely agree.
yeah. Well, let's switch gears here, Matt. And our second topic, obviously, this is my show, Over 40 Fitness Hacks. A lot of us in our 20s and 30s didn't really care and also didn't really need to care because it was just so easy to have so much energy and put on so much muscle. And now we're hitting our 40s and beyond. We're like, oh my God, sarcopenia is hitting. We're starting to feel the drag of all these issues and knowing that if we start taking better care of ourselves, we can get some of this back. I mentioned a lot of things that I was deficient in, but what do you see is like the biggest problems with the over 40 aging crowd of things they need to watch out for? I don't know if that's hormonal or just skeletal muscle. What's your take on it?
My interest is around the vitamin and mineral space, the micronutrient space. I'm always going to be a bit more biased to that now. Wasn't always, but where I'm playing in now. But I feel as we get into that past 40, it's the lack of education, I'd say, is the main thing around, well, what does our body need to actually thrive as we move forward? I know that's not probably the answer you're looking for, but it's starting in that place. So what you mentioned at the start, you're using these platforms like the chronometers, et cetera, where massive advocate as well, no affiliation with them, but just love what they're doing. And it's one of those platforms that's the closest that I've seen you can get to actually seeing what your body needs. So first it's trying to understand, well, what does your body ideally need, and then start reverse engineering how you get those nutrients into your body through food and, if needed, supplements. So starting there, looking more broadly and just seeing a lot of the feedback from our customer base, if I can speak to their experience. And we probably skew, I'd say more into the 40, 50, 60-year-olds. And it makes sense because, when you're young, you feel like you're unstoppable and you don't really notice if your magnesium levels are lower when you're younger. But as you start to get older and nutrient absorption becomes harder as we age, then you start to notice it. But from what I see, the core basics are delivering some of the best results for our customers. So magnesium is probably the hero out of all of that.
Yeah.
And the key areas that people are experiencing benefits on magnesium is, number one, it's their sleep. Magnesium's a precursor and it's it turns on different processes in your body to make you sleep better, just in its real simple form. But then it also goes to your energy production. It goes to your ability to relax and supports muscle contraction and muscle relaxation. So I think these are key factors as we're getting older and our stress levels become higher. Magnesium is just that hero mineral that goes around turning on all these different processes in the body. So that's probably, the number one I'd be looking at. Numbers 2 and 3, and again, it all depends on individuals. So I'm just speaking more broad, holistically here. Vitamin D is always at the top of our list for our customer base for a multitude of reasons, but I'd say one of the main ones is like it's your immunity, it's your ability to develop resilience in your body. Then second behind that would be zinc. Again, zinc is probably like a bit of a dark horse, and I didn't even realize just how important zinc was, particularly for men and our reproductive system health. Well, men and women, but I'm talking in terms of like testosterone production, which, as we know, decreases as we age. Zinc is just a hero to play in supporting those areas.
Yeah. Like to tell my audience, check out Matt. I found him on TikTok, but I'm sure you're on Instagram, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. And just with his blackboard showing all the different vitamins and minerals. And here's the other problem. And for the real deep down science of it, they can go check you out on those channels. But just to lightly touch on them, I started worrying about the absorption rate with a lot of these minerals you just said, because I was deficient in exactly those three. Can you touch on that? Can you touch on the timing? I didn't know the timing of these really mattered that much. Like certain ones work well with each other, certain ones fight for competition of absorption. Like a science experiment now.
Yeah,
what's the easy way to think about this?
Yes. On that point, prefacing everything is, above all else, do the best you can.
Yeah.
So despite, there's a lot of science out there, there's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of gurus out there who tell you to do something one way or another. But at the end of the day, it's your body, and experimenting what works for you. To me, that's the best form of evidence, despite any peer-reviewed journal there is. That's not discrediting that space. You need that to back up what you're experiencing, but
Everyone's
easy to get
different,
overwhelmed. Yeah, everyone's different. So I'll start with there. But if I was to we're going to start with, say, magnesium. We touched briefly on, there are many different forms of a magnesium. I think it's at least 11, if not even more. What you're looking to experience in terms of the benefits of magnesium really depend on the type you take. And then going that extra step is how you take it. The how you take part of supplements is not talked about as much, but it's often as important of the type of supplement you do take. So if we just stay for magnesium as the example, one of the most common forms of magnesiums you'll find in the market is magnesium oxide. It's magnesium bound to oxygen. And just to touch on this point briefly, any magnesium supplement, you're always going to have the magnesium itself and then some type of compound that it's bound to. And the reason for that is our bodies can't absorb magnesium as simply just a mineral salt by itself. It's too hard on the digestive system. So it's always bound to another compound. So magnesium oxide is magnesium and oxygen. Magnesium citrate is magnesium bound to citric acid. The magnesium part of the supplement will give its own benefits in your body. Like we were saying before, magnesium as an example acts as a cofactor for different processes to support your sleep. So that's the magnesium going to give those benefits. But then additional benefits your body might get come from what the magnesium is bound to. With, say, a form like magnesium glycinate, a form that's really well absorbed by the body, it's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. Glycine itself also has benefits on the nervous system and helping calm things down, which can then also help improve your sleep patterns. So when you're taking a good form and you're taking for sleep, well, you want to be looking to the form that has these benefits of the magnesium and whatever it's bound to as well. So that's just one example of, like, if you're looking for the cheap, most easily accessible types of magnesium just to raise your magnesium levels a bit, yes, magnesium oxide can play a role, but its absorption rate is quite low compared to the better quality forms like the magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate. So that's just an example of the form of magnesium or the form of supplement you take really matters if you're looking to get the most benefit. Then on the other side, it's okay, I've bought the supplement. How do I actually take this to optimize its absorption? If we stay within magnesium, there's some pretty good evidence to show that taking smaller doses of magnesium spread across multiple different times is actually more effective at raising your magnesium levels compared to just taking one large dose. And I'd say most of us, for convenience more than anything, just grab it over here, as we call it capsules, in the Australian slang, but capsules, and just throw them down. If you're looking to optimize absorption, not going to be the best practice. Again, do the best you can do, but these are just little things that you can start to incorporate into your routine, which I know our customers incorporating things like splitting up their dose of magnesium throughout the day. We're hearing a lot more benefits and experiencing a lot more benefits compared to just the old fashioned way of just throwing it all down in the mouth. So that's an example of, yeah, how you take it. Then it's also might be, well, what you take it with. Now, this one might seem a bit surprising as there are supplements that include of these minerals in the one form, but magnesium and zinc, they share similar absorption pathways. So if you're taking both as a supplement, they can start to compete for absorption, which again, when you see it as a supplement, for example, you're putting them both in the one.
Yeah.
Now, for some people that might work, but again, if you're looking to optimize absorption, which that's the place we like to play in, is how can I get the most value for the money I'm spending on a supplement? Best practice would actually be taking your magnesium and zinc at different times. So our customers, we recommend zinc either mid-morning or mid-afternoon, and the magnesium, if it's a magnesium glycinate, but towards the end of the day and before bed for its benefits on sleep. So they're just a couple of things that when you start to look at how do I go about getting the most benefit from a supplement, it's the form you take, but also how you take it is as important.
Yeah. I know zinc and copper play this dance with each other too, not only competing for absorption, but if you increase your zinc too much, you start having like hair problems and all that because you didn't pull your copper up with it. But
Yeah.
it's just watching your stuff and knowing that, well, not only do you have to worry about that, but zinc and magnesium away from each other. Wasn't calcium supposed to be offset from some of those as well?
Yeah, calcium, magnesium have a certain ratio
Yeah.
together. Yeah, zinc and copper ratios. And this is, again, it can get overwhelming. And this is where I think the best practice is always look to whole food as much as possible and then supplement where necessary. Because I believe our body is always trying to do its best for us. We just need to give it the raw material it needs.
Exactly.
But it's trying to stay in balance as much as possible at all points. So even though magnesium is the hero, if you're taking 600 milligrams of magnesium, 1,000 milligrams of magnesium a day, and you might be someone who's quite sensitive to that dose. So there are these different balances and ratios that we're looking to maintain in our body. So it is, I'm just trying to think of a way to say this without confusing your audience, but in an ideal world, you'd be looking to understand what you need before starting supplements. And if you are going to supplement, well, our personal recommendations are to start on a lower side. So you're lowering the risk of causing these other imbalances throughout the body.
Yeah. And I just know just for that whole theory of the all-in-one supplement that just has everything all bound together. Besides, you only have that one chance. Then we saw those x-rays of the passing through your digestive tract, not even getting absorbed. When I started using all these different supplements, most of them require you to take 2 or 3 or whatever. I just kept that same theory of, well, I don't really know what to put it with, when to take it. I'm just going to space them all out with that same theory of give your body what it needs, but not all at once, thinking that it may not digest it at certain parts of the day. I'll probably have the best shot if I just space them all out.
I agree. I think it's a pretty good default to fall back on.
Then if you really want to get into the biohacking, then you can watch stuff like yours where you get into like, okay, move this against this and take this at different times. And that's where I'm at right now. Just once you master something and you're curious and you got passion for it, just keep on going with it. Cause I keep having like great things happen by focusing on, all aspects of health. So,
and it's a good point to bring up where like a lot of our customers, they've come to us over times where they might've been supplementing for years and not really experiencing much of a benefit. Now the benefits will always vary between individuals, but it's quite amazing what can happen when people start to actually, one, take the right form of a certain vitamin or mineral, and then taking it in a way that's optimized for its absorption. So yeah, don't give up hope if you've been out there just supplementing blindly. You've never been educated on the space. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing to get across unless you're passionate to go about and learn it.
Yeah. And as far as like quality of supplements, is that the only aspect to think about when you're thinking about quality is what are all these other additives to make this pill? Or is there a quality aspect of the magnesium oxide itself? Like there's better places and better ways to get that where other companies can use cheaper methods, or is it just the additives is all you're worrying about?
No, it's a really good point. Probably the easiest way to explain this would be how personally I would go about choosing a supplement if I was your audience. Again, if we just stay with the magnesium, it's probably the best example. It'd be going, okay, I'm looking for a magnesium for sleep. After doing my research, I've seen magnesium glycinate is the type of magnesium for sleep. So cool, tick, I'm going to go look for that specific one. My next rule is you have different types of supplements. You'll have them as a hard capsule. You'll have a hard tablet. You'll have a soft gel. You'll have a powder. Once I've landed on, okay, I want a magnesium glycinate, the first thing I'll be looking for is I want to take this as either a capsule or a powder.
Ah.
A couple of reasons for this, but one of the main being a supplement in a capsule form compared to a hard tablet. Hard tablet is a really simple way of thinking about it, is ingredients. So you got the active ingredient plus additives bound and stuck together to give the tablet its form. So it would be like the magnesium bound with some flowing agents, with some binders, and that will all be bound, and then a tablet coating will be applied to give it that smooth, shiny surface, and maybe a coloring agent to make it look better, which I don't really know why a supplement needs to look good, but anyway, separate topic. So when you're looking at your different forms of how you can actually take a supplement, going, okay, personally, I would dismiss anything in a tablet form because it's just gone through a higher level of processing. And with that, they're going to be more additives, generally more additives added to a tablet versus a capsule or the powder itself. So that's where I'd look to first. It's the type, then it's the form, capsule or tablet. And then it's going to that extra level of detail, which again, I don't expect your audience to be across this as much, but in the US, it's looking under the label and looking at that other ingredients section. And assume maybe your audience do when they look at most food products is looking for a brand that uses the least amount of additives possible. And again, if you're choosing a supplement in a cap form, generally they'll have less additives because mostly just the capsule itself, it's the powder, and there might be, in an ideal world, 1 to 3 flowing agents to support that process of manufacturing. And the reason they're in there is some ingredients like magnesium, when it goes through the machines, it can actually stick and clump together. So if you add like an amino acid leucine into that formulation, and it's only added at a small amount, and leucine has its own benefits as amino acid, but it can actually help with that flow through the machines during the manufacturing process. So it's a way to allow for production of supplements at scale, but by using ingredients that our body actually recognize and want to use rather than say like a synthetic, like a titanium dioxide or a magnesium stearate, additives, which personally would prefer to avoid. So that's what I'm looking at. It's going, okay, deciding on the type that I want to take, looking at the form, how do I actually take this, capsule, tablet, etc., and then looking for as least amount of additives possible.
Yeah, I know some people I've talked to with some supplement companies also talk about making sure if you want to do the extra research, go to their website or somewhere on the supplement, it should say third-party tested, just because you never know in the production process, maybe it all got clumped in the first batch and then the second, third batches are getting less and less of something. If it's being third-party tested, they would catch that too. So
yeah, really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. And the reason I missed over at the start was in Australia, all supplements as per the TGA regulation, we have to do third-party testing before we release supplements to the public, and also have to do it for 2 years post the actual creation of that supplement. So we're lucky over here where if you're buying an Australian brand, you know that it's been third-party tested. In the US, aware that's not the case. So yes, definitely looking for that third-party certification. I do know that a lot of US manufacturers will do third-party testing in-house, which is good because it can allow for them to test things more often than not and allow for speed and turnaround time. However, looking for that independent third party, would be an absolute non-negotiable.
Yeah. What about sublingual? I see a lot of companies coming out with sublingual thing, and they're talking about how better absorption because it's not having to even worry about your digestive tract. But one thing is, I think some vitamins and minerals you need to go far down, and if they're not in a capsule form, they'll never make it. So what's the benefit? What's not the benefit?
In all honesty, I don't have too much of a review on it just yet. And it's mostly from when I'm looking at the evidence and when my team's looking at the evidence around our formulations that we would go about making. It's just looking at what's been proven most with the evidence that's available. And most of the time that's in forms like a capsule. It's one of the easiest. It's looking to the evidence of what's being used the most. So when I look at there, it's using powders, it's using capsules versus sublinguals. That's not to discredit sublinguals, but it's just not where we focus on as much.
And in the end, too, if someone really wants to biohack it, try both and see how you feel.
Try both. And that, again, exactly right. Like going back to what we said there before, you are the number one experiment to look at. What works for some may not work for others. We know a lot of people who they might take our magnesium, but they find they're getting better experiences taking a topical magnesium for something like muscle pain relief. So again, it's so complex, and our human bodies individually are so complex, which is beautiful, and it's the way they should be. So to try and blanket one approach,
Yeah.
I think we probably learn enough playing in the health space, and yourself included. Like, if you see someone that says that this approach works for everybody, probably stick
Right
to
there.
the red flag.
Well, cool. Well, awesome, Matt. For my audience to get a hold of you, I know we talked about before we started the recording that your company, Honor Health, is Australian based, maybe future coming over here to the US, but how can my audience get a hold of you? Is social media pretty much the only way? And I highly recommend they check you out on social media just to educate themselves too, because just from what I've seen, your channel is like the best channel I've ever seen for what we're talking about. It's supplement, timing, all that kind of stuff.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So socials is where we live and breathe. And when I say we, it's mostly just me. You'll see my face
Okay.
on all of our posts a lot. We tend to prefer to just educate rather than push product. So social media, Honor Health. And in Australia, it's spelled HONOUR Health. I know in the US, it's HONOR. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Shorts. We're not really doing a lot of long form YouTube yet, but we will start to. Right now, we only do sell in Australia, but we'll be looking to start shipping orders from Australia to the US in early 2025, and with a plan to actually start having a local presence in the US, hopefully probably later 2025. Just needs to see what might happen with some of the tariffs going on in the US. But in the meantime, like, we get a lot of questions from people in the US coming through our social media. And a lot of the times is, what brands do you recommend or what do you take? And we've got no affiliation with them at all, but our kind of go-to brands that I personally look to in the US are Thorne. Probably mostly, I would say your audience are familiar with Thorne. Jigsaw Health is another great one particularly for magnesium glycinate. But yeah, I'd look to say Thorne is probably one of the first gold standards if you're looking at what's available.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, we've got no affiliation with them, just like them.
Yeah. Well, awesome. As my audience knows, I'll put all those links and mostly social media tags in the show notes so they can check you out. And like I said, just a wealth of knowledge and easy to understand. That's my other big thing too, is sometimes when you're getting so much into the science and everything, you get this glazed over look being the audience, but the way you put it down on your blackboards and everything, it's just like, oh man, all right, little micro learning sessions just to better yourself each day. So I appreciate that and what you're doing for the industry.
I really appreciate it, Brad.